Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Hi. This happened over a year ago during the height of the pandemic in mid-2020. I'm 29 male and I'm a homeowner. I bought a house in 2019 from my uncle because he was well set and wanted to retire to his second home by a lake. Before buying the house, my uncle warned me that the neighborhood has an HOA, but it only affects those who joined it. And my uncle did not. But the price my uncle was offering was half the home's value. I couldn't pass up the offer. So I bought a house in an HOA neighborhood that wasn't a part of the HOA. Right after I moved in, I got a knock at the door, and when I opened it, I was greeted by an older woman with short graying blonde hair and face covered in thick makeup. I was holding a welcome to the neighborhood gift basket. She introduced herself as the president of the HOA, then asked to come in so she could help me fill out some forms. I knew what she was trying to do because my uncle warned me she did this to every new homeowner in the area who wasn't a part of the HOA. So I quickly and bluntly stated that I was not going to join her HOA. Her smile quickly disappeared and she started saying that I did not have a choice as all new homeowners are mandated to join. I told her I knew in advance that was a total lie and that I will not be paying any dues or fines and will be ready to call a lawyer if I have to. She called me a thorn in the neighborhood and said she'd be back, though we did not speak to each other for some time. I expected her to start sending me fines in the mail, but the most I usually got were letters stating that my grass were getting tall or my driveway needed sweeping. Those never bothered me because they are normal home chores and need to be done regularly anyway. But several neighbors that were on the HOA side made it clear they didn't like me because I didn't join, just like my uncle. I said that was fine, we're neighbors, but we don't have to be friends. They said that was fine too because I'm an outsider and they will never accept me until I join the HOA. Later in early 2020, I got word from a friend that people were starting to buy a lot of disinfectant, toilet paper and hand sanitizer in bulk. I decided the best option was to order the things online. I got 8 big 12 packs of toilet paper, a case of 20 bottles of hand sanitizer, 3 boxes of disposal latex gloves, a couple of boxes of disposal face masks, and a case of 20 large cans of name brand disinfectant spray. I set for the delivery to be signed for me only, as I did not trust anyone not to steal my packages if they were just left on my porch. When the packages were delivered, several neighbors saw me getting lots of toilet paper and some other packages that contained the other stuff. And just because I'm a paranoid guy, I still bought more of the same stuff when I saw it in stores, like those small cheap 4 packs of toilet paper or off-brand disinfectant sprays. I bought them because I had a feeling some friends or some family might need some soon. And I was right. As expected, toilet paper, disinfectant, and sanitizer pretty much disappeared from store shelves for miles around, and people were fighting over hoarding them. Meanwhile, I've got a very generous supply that I still haven't come close to using up. Though word of my supply got around fast when people started needing some. A friend of mine ran out of toilet paper and had no hand sanitizer, so I gave him a couple of the generic 4 packs of TP and a bottle of sanitizer at my door. A few family members ran out too, and I shared with them as well. They were all extremely grateful. But I ended up with several neighbors knocking on my door and asking to buy my supply or wanting handouts. But I refused and said I only gave some of what I had away to friends and family. And they made it pretty clear to me before that we'd never be friends since I refused to join the HOA. So if I were to give some to one neighbor, they would all want my supplies. And then I'd run out really fast. They didn't like this and harassed me several times from the sidewalk, but I just ignored them. Later, the HOA Karen showed up at my door and told me several neighbors had run out of all the items that this post is about. Then said she wasn't asking, but demanding I share my stock with my neighbors to set a good example. I told her to buzz off, because that had nothing to do with me. I may be a jerk, but I am a well-prepared jerk. And I've read her HOA bylaws online. So even if I was a member of her HOA, which I was not, I wouldn't have to give up my stock either way. She left while yelling at me that one day, I'd regret not being a good neighbor or being a part of her HOA. The next time I went to work, I was notified around noon by the cameras I had at my house that there was a thief breaking into my home. I could see a video of them on my smartphone, and it looked like a woman in a spandex suit with her face covered by a hockey mask. I called the police immediately and was allowed to clock out at work so I could rush home. Right around the time I got there, the cops were walking HOA Karen out in handcuffs to a police cruiser. She'd broken into my home by using a crowbar to force open the back door and was tossing all of my toilet paper and any other supplies she could grab out into my backyard, where her kids were picking it up and bagging it. I pressed charges and the HOA Karen got 6 months in jail and probation. HOA Karen's husband called me to apologize for his wife and told me that he had been planning a divorce for a while because this isn't the first time she'd been in trouble with the law. And CPS got involved too because she was using her kids to help steal from me. So he was going to file for full custody in the divorce. HOA Karen didn't return and someone new was elected HOA president in her place. Her husband didn't move and I see him from time to time. And there is no hard feelings between us. And yes, he did get full custody of his kids because his wife had a longer history with the law than I thought. We're sort of friends now too, as we've occasionally had a beer together, and he helped me replace my back door that his ex broke. I am making this post more than a year later because I just saw HOA Karen again. I was visiting some friends in another city and saw her working at the local supermarket there bagging groceries. As soon as we saw each other, she obviously recognized me because she scowled and refused to look at me again the entire time I was there. Oh well, you reap what you saw, Karen. About 25 years ago, my aunt/uncle moved into a new construction single-family home neighborhood on a half-acre. About 6 months after they moved in, he was informed that his neighborhood was being taken over by an HOA. He disregarded his HOA application as he did not wish to join. Not long after this, random neighbors began complaining to him directly about his boat and cars in his driveway violating HOA rules. He just informed the often rude people that he was not a member, and they would argue with him that everyone was a member. One of the major issues is that his driveway, garage and front yard was on the main level of his home, and the backyard dropped down a cliff to level with his basement and backyard. So he had no way to back his boat around the side of the home into the backyard. Eventually, the HOA began harassing him with threats if he didn't move his boat to the backyard. His backyard had been closed off by a vinyl fence the HOA installed and lined another road back there. So one day my uncle decided to compromise by trying to take down a section of his back fence so he could make a gate for boat parking access. The HOA called the police on him for destruction of property. The police left my uncle with a warning if the fence was returned to proper condition by the end of the day. Uncle put the fence back up and placed his boat back in his front driveway. Now the fines started coming, week after week, months after months. When the fines reached $10,000, the HOA filed a lawsuit against him. He countersued for the harassment and street access to his backyard. In the court, the HOA showed the HOA boundary and showed my uncle's house was in the middle of the HOA, explained the violations, and the police report filed over the back fence. My uncle explained that he never signed up for the HOA, moved into the neighborhood before the HOA existed, never gave them permission to fence in his backyard, provided all the mortgage documentation and a blank HOA application with the HOA security stamp and date. The HOA argued that it didn't matter if he didn't turn in his application because he was within the HOA borders. The judge declared my uncle's property was grandfathered as private property and not part of the HOA. The HOA was to immediately take down their illegal fence on the back border of my uncle's lot. And since the HOA had fined my uncle 10+K in illegal fines, my uncle was owed 10+K in damages for the harassment. My uncle rebuilt his yard fence in a see-through chain link with a gate where he parks all his toys in full view. He moved the boat from the driveway to his front lawn, let the lawn die and paved it over, all 10 feet from his front door to the sidewalk. The HOA neighbors in a decade since still approach him to complain, and he just tells them to take a walk knowing there is nothing they can do to him. This happened a few years ago when I used to own a condo. I initially bought a condo from my older brother who gave me a good deal since he got another job and had to move to another city halfway across the state. The HOA would not let him rent out the condo, so he sold it to me. After moving in and learning about how bad HOAs can be the hard way, I noticed that there is a problem with the foundation. There were some spots where there was a large noticeable gap between the wall and ceiling. All of the buildings had 4 condos each. I reported the issue to the HOA and they never initially replied back about it. They decided to ignore the issue instead. Over time, I had noticed that the cracks were getting bigger and occasionally heard popping noises at night coming from the attic. I have tried reporting the issue again and the HOA simply ignored it again. I decided I would like to sell the place and get out of there. Because of the foundation issue, nobody would want to buy it at the time. Also, eventually met one of the neighbors who was also reporting similar foundation issues. Eventually, after enough complaints, the HOA board decided to finally start fixing the foundation issues. That is when I found out that at least 8 other buildings had similar foundation problems. They then issued my first special assessment at about $3,500. Everyone in the affected buildings had to pay the special assessment. Then they started working on a couple buildings and fixed the foundation issues there. Then they stopped working on repairing any other buildings. It looked like the buildings that the board members lived in got fixed before they stopped. Something did not seem right at all. After sending messages to the HOA board to ask why they stopped and when they will continue working, they ignored everything again. It looks like the HOA board decided to play games with fixing the buildings and try to ignore the issue as much as possible, while collecting special assessment payments. Also during this time, they kept also raising the monthly HOA fee as well. Around this time, I met some of my neighbors who also had foundation issues as well. One of them was a retired reporter who specialized in finding corruption in large corporations and government offices. She started to help us out with the legal issues and fight the HOA in court if it got to that point. Eventually, the HOA decided that they will issue another special assessment for around $3,000 to help cover the costs of the foundation repair. During this time, the HOA ignored all the questions about when the foundations will be fixed, while collecting more money from special assessment. My neighbor got the rest of the neighbors in that building together for us to help fight the HOA. She wrote letters demanding answers about when things will be fixed, and we would all sign them to show the HOA that we are not playing games anymore. This went on for a while. Eventually, the property manager tried to actually claim that my building had no foundation issues. I decided to call a couple foundation repair companies and got some quotes for foundation repair. Apparently, the foundation sank about 3 inches according to them. I then sent a copy of those estimates to the property manager. One of them was over $10,000 just to fix my corner of the building. I was also threatening to have the foundation company fix it myself, using the funds from the sale of the condo. The property manager was then forced to admit that there was a foundation problem in my building. Also, during this time, my neighbor did talk to an HOA lawyer that specializes in going after abusive HOAs. She also called various local city offices as well. The city government actually stepped in and also threatened to sue the HOA. Around this time, the fire department came and inspected the building. What they found was very disturbing. The support beams for the roof were breaking. I was also sent pictures of the support beams. They were bending and starting to break. Code enforcement came by and also issued the HOA a fine. The HOA kept trying to play games and still refused to fix the building this whole time. That didn't work when the city's manager's office threatened to sue the HOA on our behalf if they didn't fix the problem very quickly. The HOA finally got a foundation repair company to come check the foundation and fix it. They held a meeting for us with the foundation company to go over the repair process. That is when I found out that one of the units had the foundation sink as much as 6 inches. Also, after that meeting, we ended up getting a third special assessment for $2,500. After finally fixing the foundation issue, the HOA was also forced to replace the roof as well. All of these repairs got very expensive for the HOA. Around the time they replaced the roof, I sold my condo and got out of there. During this entire time, I had to fight the HOA. I had found that they previously fired the last 2 property management companies. Also, the foundation board had been ignoring foundation issues for at least 10 years, and eventually the problems got so bad that it required the city to threaten to sue the HOA in order to get them to fix the problem. Also, during this time, the HOA actually tried to issue a $12,000 special assessment to everyone there. They tried to sneak it into a board meeting and hope that nobody found out about it until it was passed. What actually happened is that someone found out about it and put flyers on everyone's door telling them about it. The next meeting, a riot almost happened, and the $12,000 special assessment failed very badly. Most of the homeowners attended that meeting and let the HOA board know in a not-so-nice way that they did not like that at all. So when I moved into my house, there was no HOA. I bought my house in December 2018. The neighborhood formed an HOA in September 2019. In the state I live in, I have the option of joining the HOA or not joining the HOA. My wife and I chose not to join. In the HOA's eyes, this was strike 1. So started their constant attempts to get us to join. All attempts were turned away. After months of these attempts, I finally threatened police intervention. After a month of peaceful silence, the fines started appearing in my mailbox. When the fines started coming in, I contacted a lawyer and she said as long as I have a copy of the HOA contract that shows that I denied being in the HOA, I will be fine. Now I had a copy of the HOA contract that stated I was not a part of the HOA. It was signed by myself, my wife, and the HOA board. Fast forward 1 year to September 2020, I received a summons to court. The summons basically says that I am being sued due to unpaid HOA fines. I show the summons to my lawyer and she says I have nothing to worry about as long as I produce the copy of the contract that shows that I am not part of the HOA. The court date arrives and the HOA produces an altered copy of the contract that shows me joining the HOA. It literally looked like somebody had used whiteout to cover up my check mark next to the part that said not joining the HOA. Then they checked off the box that had me joining them. When it was my turn, I stood up and said that the contract they showed was doctored. Then I presented mine, along with the evidence of them trying to get me to join the HOA even after my wife and I had said no. I finished my argument with if I had joined the HOA at the beginning, then why would they continuously need to keep asking me to join? Needless to say, the judge tore them a new one and ordered them to disband the HOA. Life in the neighborhood has since become much simpler. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.